My name is Dana Whitfield, and I'm 29 years old. 6 months ago, I flew from Seattle to Charleston for my sister Bree's wedding. When I gave my name at the check-in table, the coordinator's smile faltered. She scanned the list once, twice, then looked up at me with something close to pity. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I don't see you here." I called my sister right there in the lobby. She scoffed before I even finished the sentence. "Did you really think you were invited?" So I didn't argue. I walked to the gift table, set down a small navy blue box, and left without another word. 2 hours later, when Bree opened it in front of 380 guests, her face went white, and she hasn't stopped calling me since. I haven't answered a single time. Before I tell you what was inside that box, take a second to like this video and subscribe if you're enjoying the story so far. Drop a comment telling me your city and the time where you are. I read everyone. Now, to understand why one small box unraveled everything. My sister spent her whole life building. You need to know where this really started. I grew up in a restored Georgian house on the edge of Charleston's historic district, the kind with wraparound porches and a magnolia tree older than the state itself. From the street, we looked like the family everyone envied. Old surnames, garden club invitations, a father who sat on hospital boards. Inside those walls, though, there were 2 daughters, and only one of them counted. Bree was 2 years older than me, and she had the bigger room, the private tennis lessons, the debutante ball. Our parents planned for a full year. I got hand-me-down dresses, and a mother who forgot my school pickup more than once. I remember my 11th birthday clearly, because it was the year I finally understood my place in that house. I'd been counting down for weeks, imagining a cake, maybe a few friends over, the kind of small fuss every kid hopes for. That morning, I came downstairs and found the kitchen empty. My mother was on the phone with a florist going over centerpieces for Bree's cotillion. My father had already left for his office. "Mom," I said, "it's my birthday." She covered the receiver with her palm. "I know, sweetheart. We'll do something later." We never did. That evening, though, someone knocked on my bedroom door. It was my grandmother, Josephine. Everyone called her Josie, holding a small wrapped box. "Happy birthday, my darling girl," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. Inside was a camera, not a toy, a real one, second-hand but solid, with a worn leather strap. "You have an eye, Dana," she told me, touching my cheek. "One day the world is going to see what I already see." I had no idea that camera would become my entire life. And Grandma Josie. She knew exactly what she was planting. 7 years later, I graduated high school with a full scholarship to the Savannah College of Art and Design, one of the top design programs in the country. I thought, finally, this might be the thing that made them look at me. I'd even been asked to speak briefly at the ceremony. I practiced my 2 minutes for weeks. The morning of graduation, I came downstairs in my cap and gown to find Bree at the kitchen table, scrolling her phone while my parents huddled over a laptop. "The ceremony starts at 2, I said. "We should leave soon to get seats." My mother didn't look up. "Sweetheart." Something came up. My father finally glanced at me. "Bree has an internship interview with a firm in Atlanta. It's a huge opportunity. We can't miss driving her." I stood there in my gown holding my index cards. "It's my graduation. Photography isn't a real career, Dana," my father said flatly. "Maybe you should think about something practical like your sister." Bree smirked and said nothing at all. I went to that ceremony alone. I gave my 2 minutes to a room full of strangers, and when they called my name to walk the stage, I searched the crowd and found exactly one familiar face. Grandma Josie, front row, clapping louder than anyone. Afterward, she took both my hands in hers. "Remember, sweetheart," she said quietly, "the greatest treasures aren't always the ones people fight over. Sometimes they're the ones quietly passed down." I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. I would years later, standing outside my sister's wedding, with a small navy box in my hands. After graduation, I packed 2 suitcases and booked a one-way flight to Seattle. Nobody asked where I was going, so nobody got an answer. For the next 9 years, I built my life in almost total silence. I started as a second shooter for a wedding photographer downtown, hauling gear bags, and adjusting reflectors for other people's dream days. I saved everything. I learned everything. Client by client, referral by referral, I built something that was entirely mine. My family never once asked how the work was going. To them, I was still Dana, who takes pictures of strangers. Bree called occasionally, never to check on me, only to update me on her achievements. Senior brand director at 28, a corner office. Engaged to Julian Ashcroft, whose family owned half the commercial waterfront in Savannah. Every call was a performance, and I was her only audience. I just closed a huge account, she told me once. What about you? Still doing those little photo shoots? I was sitting in my studio at the time, floor-to-ceiling windows over Puget Sound, a wall of awards behind me, a client roster that would have made her drop her mimosa. I'm doing well, Bree. Congratulations. Thanks. Mom and Dad are throwing me a dinner next week. Obviously, you're not invited. It's immediate family only. I let that phrase sit there. Immediate family. Of course, I said. Have a wonderful time. I hung up and looked around my studio. Lumina Frame Studios, $2.8 million in revenue the year before, a 12-person team, features in 3 national bridal magazines. None of them had any idea, and for a long time I told myself that was fine, that their opinion had stopped mattering to me years ago. Then Grandma Josie died, and everything changed. The call came on a Thursday morning. A Charleston number I didn't recognize. Miss Whitfield, this is Arthur Grant, your grandmother's attorney. I'm very sorry to tell you Josephine Calloway passed away last night. The room tilted. She was 84. I always thought there'd be one more visit. One more phone call. I flew out that same afternoon. The service was held at St. Michael's, packed with people whose lives she'd touched. She'd funded scholarships and small galleries for decades, quietly, without ever wanting credit. I sat alone in the 3rd row. My parents sat up front, accepting condolences. Bree stood beside them in black, dabbing dry eyes with a handkerchief. And between hugs, I watched her lean toward my mother and whisper something. I caught 2 words. The jewelry. My mother whispered back, "We'll discuss it after." I sat there staring at my grandmother's casket while my own family quietly inventoried her belongings before she was even in the ground. After the service, a gray-haired man touched my shoulder. "Ms. Whitfield, could you stay a moment? There's something your grandmother wanted you to have." I had no idea that what he was about to hand me would change absolutely everything. Mr. Grant led me to a small side office and closed the door. "Your grandmother came to see me 2 years ago," he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "She was very specific. This is separate from her public will. Inside were 2 documents and a letter. The first was a notarized amendment to her estate. The entire Calloway jewelry collection, appraised at just over $2 million, was mine. Not Bree's, not my mother's, mine." My hands were shaking as I unfolded the letter. "My dearest Dana, if you're reading this, I'm gone, but I need you to understand why. Bree sees these pieces as trophies. You see their history. You understand that beauty isn't about owning something, it's about honoring it. Your mother and sister will be furious. They'll call it a mistake. But I have watched you become someone remarkable while no one else was watching. These pieces belong with you. All my love, Grandma Josie." "She asked that this stay confidential," Mr. Grant said gently, "until you decide the right moment." I nodded, unable to speak, and walked out of that church, carrying a secret I would sit with for 6 months, a secret I'd end up using at my sister's wedding. 3 months after the funeral, the news came. Bree was engaged. Julian Ashcroft. Savannah shipping money. The exact kind of match my parents had spent a lifetime hoping for. The wedding would be at the Carrington estate outside Charleston. 380 guests. A budget in the high 6 figures. And somewhere between the flowers and the string quartet, my invitation never came. Weeks passed. I checked the mail every day. Nothing. Finally, I called my mother. "I haven't gotten my invitation yet. Should I RSVP directly to Bree?" A long pause. "Dana, Bree wanted me to talk to you about that." My stomach dropped before she even finished. "The wedding's very intimate. Bree felt it would be better if you didn't come." Intimate. I'd already seen the guest count on Bree's own Instagram post. "You know how you can be at these events," my mother added. Awkward. "We don't want anything to distract from her day." I sat in silence, phone pressed to my ear, and said only, "I understand. Thank you for telling me." Then I hung up, scrolled through months of Bree's wedding posts, the dress fitting, the registry, hundreds of congratulations, and made a decision that would change everything for both of us. The Carrington estate looked exactly like the photos. Restored plantation-era architecture, wrapped in string lights, oak trees, dripping Spanish moss, A fountain courtyard that probably cost more to build than most people's homes. A string trio played near the entrance, while guests in tailored linen and pastel silk drifted toward the reception lawn. I stood at the edge of it all, my navy box tucked under one arm, heart hammering against my ribs. I smoothed my dress, sage green, simples, nothing that would draw attention, and walked to the check-in table. Two women in white blazers sat behind an iPad guest list. "Good evening," I said. "I'm here for the Ashcroft-Calloway wedding. Dana Whitfield." One of them tapped through the names, frowned, tapped again. "I'm sorry, I don't see a Whitfield on the list. Let me check with my colleague." The second woman scrolled slower this time. "There's a Marion Whitfield, a Harold Whitfield, a Bree Whitfield, soon to be Ashcroft." She looked up at me, almost apologetic. "But no Dana." Behind them, through the open tent flaps, I could see white linens, towering floral arrangements, 380 people already laughing over champagne. My name wasn't among them. "Ma'am, is there someone I can call for you?" the first woman asked. "No," I said quietly. "I'll take care of it myself." I stepped away and dialed my sister. She picked up on the third ring, impatient the sound of the party humming behind her. "What, Bree, it's Dana. I'm at the venue. My name isn't on the list." A pause, then a short, cold laugh. "That's because you weren't invited." Even though I'd braced for it, the words still landed hard. "I'm your sister." "You really thought you'd be invited to something like this?" "This wedding is for people who matter, Dana. Not someone who takes pictures for a living." I closed my eyes. I flew across the country. I just wanted to give you something. "Let me guess. A coupon for a free photo session." She didn't wait for an answer. "Nobody wants you here. Not Mom. Not Dad. Definitely not me. You've embarrassed this family your whole life. Go back to Seattle." I let her words wash over me without flinching. "I understand," I said evenly. "I'll leave your gift at the table." "Fine. Don't make a scene." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there a moment, phone still in my hand, and then I smiled. Because I knew exactly what was in that box, and I knew exactly when she'd open it. The gift table was its own kind of spectacle. Dozens of wrapped boxes in Tiffany blue and glossy white, crystal, silver frames, envelopes thick with checks. I found an open corner and set my small navy box down among them, tucking a card under the ribbon. "To Bree, from your sister Dana." One of the check-in women approached, her voice gentler now. "Ma'am, are you sure you don't want to stay?" I could speak to the coordinator. "No, thank you," I said. Some gifts speak louder when the giver isn't in the room. She looked confused but didn't push. I took one last look at the reception tent, my family celebrating somewhere inside, none of them thinking about me at all, and turned to leave. They would be thinking about me soon enough. I hadn't always known this moment was coming. 2 months earlier, I was at my desk reviewing invoices when my assistant knocked. "Dana, you have a call. Someone named Renata Voss." My stomach flipped. Renata Voss ran the most exclusive event planning firm on the East Coast. She'd coordinated weddings for senators and old shipping dynasties, and she'd also been Grandma Josie's closest friend for 40 years. "Renata, it's been too long. Far too long, dear. Josie spoke about you constantly. She was so proud of what you built." My throat tightened. "I'm calling because I have a bride in Charleston who needs a photographer. Very demanding, very particular. I told her Lumina Frame is the best on the coast. I appreciate that. There's one thing you should know first." A pause. "The bride is your sister." I went still. "She signed the contract last week. She has no idea you own the company. She just fell for the portfolio. And you recommended us anyway. Your grandmother would have wanted this, Dana. She always said the truth finds its own way out." The contract was already signed. A $15,000 non-refundable deposit. Whether I showed up personally was entirely up to me. There was something else Bree didn't know. A month before the wedding, at a bridal brunch at the Ashcroft family's country club, 30 women had gathered over champagne while Bree held court. "Grandma's brooch will be my something old," she'd announced. "The whole collection is worth over $2 million. It's been in the family for generations." "How wonderful that it's going to you," someone said. "Obviously," Bree replied. I was always her favorite. She knew I'd appreciate those pieces properly, not like my sister, who couldn't tell a sapphire from a costume stone. My mother had nodded along, sipping her mimosa. "Your grandmother would want you to have them, sweetheart. You were always the one she was proudest of." What none of them knew. The collection had been mine for 6 months already. Bree had contacted Mr. Grant repeatedly trying to claim it before the wedding. He'd politely cited ongoing estate matters. She assumed it was paperwork. She'd already commissioned a custom display case. She'd told Julian's family about it. Old money, impressed by older jewels. She believed completely that Grandma Josie had loved her best. She was about to find out how wrong she was. With 380 of Charleston's finest watching, my taxi dropped me at the airport, just as the sun sank over the harbor. I sat in the lounge with a coffee, watching planes lift into the orange sky, thinking about Grandma Josie. About the camera she'd given me at 11, about the way she'd looked at me when no one else did. The greatest treasures aren't always the ones people fight over. Sometimes they're the ones quietly passed down. I understood it now, completely. She'd known exactly who Bree would become. She'd made sure that when this moment came, I'd have the truth on my side. Not revenge, just truth. Inside that navy box sat a copy of her will, her letter to me, a photograph of the two of us at her favorite jewelry shop, and one folded sheet at the very bottom, the Lumina Frame Studios contract. My name printed clearly at the bottom of the page. Back at the Carrington estate. Dinner service was underway. 100 round tables draped in ivory linen, orchids cascading from the center pieces, 380 guests toasting to a couple who seemed to have everything. Bree glowed in a custom gown, diamonds at her throat, Julian at her side, looking every bit the adoring groom. My parents sat at the head table beaming, my father shaking hands with Julian's father. 2 patriarchs sealing an alliance. Nobody mentioned my name. Nobody noticed the missing chair. During cocktail hour, Bree had drifted through the crowd accepting compliments. When someone admired her earrings, she'd leaned in. Wait until you see the full collection. I'm inheriting over 2 million in heirloom pieces. I'll be wearing the sapphires to the Magnolia Ball next spring. Her guests had ooved appropriately. Now, as dessert plates were cleared, the MC tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our bride and groom to open a few gifts before the cake. Bree clapped, delighted, and floated toward the gift table like she was approaching a throne. She opened a crystal vase, a set of silver candlesticks. Each gift met with a gracious smile for the room. Then her hand landed on the small navy box. She glanced at the card and laughed, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Oh, a gift from my sister, the one who couldn't even be bothered to show up properly. A few guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. She pulled the ribbon loose, still smiling for the crowd, and lifted the lid. Inside was a thick envelope. She pulled out the papers, unfolding them slowly. A legal document heavy with stamps and signatures, a handwritten letter on cream stationery, a photograph of an old woman and a young girl outside a jewelry shop. Her smile flickered, then vanished entirely. Her face went white, then red, then white again. "What is it?" Julian asked, leaning in. Bree didn't answer. Her hands were shaking. The letter slipped from her fingers to the floor. 380 guests fell silent, watching her carefully constructed world begin quietly to come apart. My mother reached the head table within seconds. "What's wrong? What is it?" Bree thrust the papers at her, hands trembling. My mother's eyes scanned the notarized seal, the signature, the words declaring the Callaway Jewelry Collection, the sole property of Dana Josephine Whitfield. The color drained from her face. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not a mistake," Bree's voice cracked. "It's dated 2 years ago, before Grandma even got sick." Whispers rippled outward from the head table. Guests nearby had seen enough. The bride's stricken face, the shaking papers. "Isn't that the jewelry she was bragging about earlier? The 2 million collection?" Someone murmured. "She said it was hers." Bree heard them. Her face twisted. "This is fake. My sister forged this. She's always been jealous of me." My father appeared at my mother's shoulder, grim-faced, and read the document, then picked up the fallen letter. "Bree sees these pieces as trophies. Dana sees them as memories. I know who will honor my legacy." His jaw tightened. He recognized his mother's handwriting. He recognized her signature. And for perhaps the first time, he understood exactly what Josie had seen in both of her granddaughters, and what she had chosen. "This can't be happening," Bree sobbed, snatching the letter back. "Not today. Not at my wedding." Julian stood frozen beside her, watching his bride unravel in front of everyone he knew, looking like a man realizing he didn't actually know the woman he'd just married. Wait. Julian's voice cut through her crying. He was staring at the box. There's something else in there. Bree looked down. A second folded document, half hidden under tissue paper. A photography contract. Lumina Frame Studios. Wedding Services Agreement. Her eyes dropped to the signature line. Client. Bree Whitfield. Owner proprietor. Dana Whitfield. Deposit paid. $15,000 non-refundable. No, she whispered. No. Julian took the paper from her, reading fast. You told me your sister couldn't hold a job, that she was unstable. I didn't know, Bree said, spinning around wildly. Where's the photographer? Where is she? A young woman stepped forward nervously from the corner, where the photo team had been working all evening. I'm the lead photographer, ma'am. Ms. Whitfield owns the company. She doesn't typically shoot events herself. You work for her? The photographer nodded carefully. Lumina Frame has shot over 200 weddings. We're one of the top studios on the coast. The ballroom had gone completely silent. Someone at a nearby table had already pulled out their phone. Julian turned to Bree, his voice quiet in a way. I'm told no one had ever heard from him before. What else have you lied about? Bree didn't answer. She was too busy reaching for her own phone, desperate to call the one person who could explain any of this. But some things can't be explained away. That's when Renata Voss stepped forward from the edge of the room, calm and unhurried, the way only someone who has planned 3 decades of weddings can be. If I may, she said, and the murmurs quieted. She took the legal document from Bree's shaking hands and studied it briefly. This is authentic. I witnessed Josephine Calloway sign this amendment 2 years ago. I was there when she explained her reasoning to her attorney. My mother stepped forward. Renata, you can't possibly. I can, Marion. Josie was my closest friend for 40 years. Her voice was gentle but unmovable. She told me exactly why she made this choice. She said Bree sees jewelry as trophies. She said Dana was the only one who ever loved her for who she was, not what she owned. The words settled over the room like dust after an explosion. She also said something else, Renata continued. Dana never asked me for anything. Bree never stopped asking. That mattered to her. Bree's mouth opened. No sound came out. For maybe the first time in her life, my sister had nothing to say, and 380 witnesses had heard every word of it. There's something else people should know. A man in his 60s stood from a back table, silver-haired, expensively dressed. Foster Lane, a media executive and old friend of Julian's father. I know Dana Whitfield. She shot my daughter's wedding in Napa last year. 600 guests. She was extraordinary. A murmur swept the room. Wait, a woman said from another table. Lumina Frame. They shot the Bellwether Foundation gala. They've been in 3 bridal magazines this year alone. More voices rose. I heard they're booked 2 years out. A friend told me she turned down a celebrity wedding because her calendar was full. Bree's face was a mask of disbelief. That's impossible. Dana takes pictures of strangers. She's nobody. Actually, Foster Lane said, not unkindly, she's quite successful. Her studio did close to $3 million in revenue last year. She's one of the most sought-after photographers on the West Coast. My mother gripped the back of a chair like she might go down. My father stood very still, his face doing the slow math of 28 years of being wrong. She never told us, he murmured. Would you have listened? Renata asked simply. 3,000 miles away. I was still in the airport lounge when my phone lit up. Bree's name, over and over. I let it ring. Then my mother's name, then my father's. The texts started flooding in. Pick up the phone. You ruined everything. How could you do this? We need to talk right now. 47 missed calls by the time I finished my coffee. I silenced the phone and boarded my flight home. Before I switched it off completely, one more message came through. Not from Bree, not from my parents. From Julian Donna, this is Julian Ashcroft. I got your number off the Lumina Frame contract. I need to understand what happened tonight. Bree won't explain anything. She just keeps saying you betrayed her. She told me you were unstable, that your family had to cut you off for your own good. I believed her. I never once tried to hear your side. I read it, standing in the jet bridge while other passengers streamed past me. Another message. The reception ended early. Half the guests left after Renata spoke. I don't know what to believe right now. A flight attendant touched my arm and asked me to take my seat. I buckled in and typed back, Thank you for reaching out. I have no ill feelings toward you. I hope you find clarity. His reply came almost instantly. The wedding's over. I don't know yet if the marriage will be. I turned my phone off as the plane pushed back from the gate. I didn't find out about the video until the next morning. My assistant, Priya, was waiting. When I walked into the studio, her phone already in her hand. Dana, you need to see this. A clip, already past 2 million views and climbing, captioned, "Rich bride finds out her loser sister is secretly a millionaire." Someone had filmed the entire thing from a back table. Bree's face sliding from smug to confused to devastated. Renata's speech, Foster Lane's revelation, Julian's cold command for her to stop talking. The comments were endless. The quiet ones are always the ones you underestimate. Grandma knew exactly who deserved that jewelry. This is the most satisfying thing I've seen all year. Your name's trending, Priya said quietly. We got 300 new inquiries overnight. I hadn't wanted any of this. I hadn't filmed a thing, posted a thing, tried to go viral. I just wanted to be seen by my own family. Now the whole internet was watching instead. I canceled my meetings for the day. This wasn't over, and I had a feeling my family would be showing up soon. 3 days later, my mother appeared at the studio. I was reviewing proofs when the front desk buzzed. Dana, there's a woman here, she says. She's your mother. I closed my eyes for a second, then walked out to the lobby. Marion Whitfield stood near the entrance looking entirely out of place. Pearls perfect, eyes red-rimmed and uncertain, staring at the framed magazine covers on the wall. This is yours, she said when she saw me. All of it. Yes, you never told us. You never asked. She flinched. I led her back to my office and closed the door. I came to talk about what happened, she said. Hands folded tightly in her lap. I assumed you ruined your sister's wedding. I wasn't even invited, Mom. You know what I mean, that gift. I gave her Grandma Josie's truth, I said evenly. Every document in that box was real. But why humiliate her in front of everyone? I didn't. She spent months bragging about jewelry that was never hers. She told her fiancé I was unstable. She told everyone I was a failure. My mother's face crumpled. I spent 28 years invisible in this family, I said quietly. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for honesty. For the first time in my life, my mother actually looked at me, really looked, and then she started to cry. Not the composed social tears she produced at Gallus, real ugly sobs. We failed you, she said. I failed you. Bree was loud about everything she wanted, and you never asked for anything. So I told myself that meant you were fine. Josie tried to warn me I was losing you. I didn't listen. I see it now. Before she left, she told me about Bree. Julian had postponed the honeymoon and was staying at his parents' house, taking time to think. The video had made things worse. People at Bree's company had seen it, and she'd been asked to take a leave of absence. Julian's parents had called mine, asking if there was anything else Bree had lied about. She'd tried to claim I'd manipulated the will, that Josie hadn't been in her right mind, but Renata was close with the Ashcrofts, and Renata had told them the truth. Bree had lost far more than jewelry. She'd lost Julian's trust, his family's respect, and the image she'd spent a lifetime building. She blames you, my mother said at the door. She says you destroyed her life on purpose. I didn't destroy anything, I said. I just stopped pretending. My mother paused before leaving. Josie always said you were the strongest of us. Her voice cracked. I think I finally understand what she meant. That evening I stayed late, watching the skyline fade from gold to blue, holding a photo of Josie and me at her 81st birthday. Did you plan all of this? I asked the empty office. She wouldn't have answered, but I could hear her anyway. I just planted seeds, darling. You grew yourself. I thought about Bree, drowning in consequences of her own making. About my mother finally opening her eyes after almost 3 decades. I didn't want to punish my family forever, but I couldn't go back to being invisible either. Sitting there, I made a decision. The door wouldn't be locked. If Bree ever offered a real apology, not excuses, not blame, but actual accountability, I'd listen. If my parents wanted to know the real me, I'd give them the chance. But I wouldn't chase anyone anymore. I wrote it in my journal that night. I won't close the door on them, but I won't hold it open forever either. They have to choose to walk through it. A week later, I went to the bank. The Callaway collection was waiting in a private vault. 12 pieces spanning generations, a pearl choker from the 1920s, Art Deco earrings, A sapphire brooch that had once belonged to a French countess. Bree had wanted these as trophies. Josie had seen them as something else entirely. Beauty isn't about possession. It's about preservation. I arranged for the most historically significant pieces to be loaned to the Gibbs Museum in Charleston, displayed with a small plaque honoring Josephine Calloway. The rest I kept safe. For now, as I was leaving the vault, the bank manager handed me one more sealed envelope, found tucked at the back of the box. Inside, a short note in Josie's handwriting. My darling Dana, one more thing I didn't tell you. I left Bree something too. A simple pearl bracelet that was my mother's. Not valuable, but meaningful, if she can ever understand its worth. I hope someday she will. Love always, Grandma Josie. I stood in that bank lobby and cried. Even at the end, my grandmother had still hoped Bree might change. 6 months have passed since the wedding. I'm still in Seattle, still running Lumina Frame Studios, still building the life I made from nothing. The video eventually faded, the way these things do. My name stopped trending, but some things are different now. My mother calls once a week. Awkward at first, both of us learning how to talk to each other. My father sent a 3-page handwritten letter, apologizing for years of not seeing me. I haven't answered it yet, but I'm thinking about it. Bree and Julian are in counseling. She called me last month for the first time since the wedding. She didn't apologize exactly, but she didn't attack me either. She just said, I'm trying to understand. Maybe that's all she has to offer right now. Maybe someday it'll be more. Here's what I've learned through all of this. The best response to contempt isn't revenge. It's not proving anyone wrong or waving your success in their face. It's building something real. It's knowing your own worth so completely that nobody's opinion, not even your family's, can shake it anymore. I didn't fly to Charleston to destroy my sister. I flew there to finally be seen. And that box on the gift table wasn't about tearing her down. It was about standing up. For the first time in my life, choosing myself. So let me ask you, have you ever had to set a boundary with someone you loved? What did it cost you? And what did you get back in return? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't showing up. It's knowing exactly when to walk away. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Until next time, remember, you are worthy of being seen.